The personalities that matter with Keith Vaz on Talking Points.
Leica Radio.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. My special guest today is Sanjeev Kumar, who was born in Patna in India from a family of civil servants. He left India when he was 16 and went to study in America. When he arrived in the United Kingdom, and he's been living here for the last 17 years, he has become an author, an entrepreneur, a chief executive, and a visionary. He decided to switch from his previous employment to begin life as an entrepreneur, and therefore he described his journey as one of, and I quote, curiosity over the years. Sanjeev Kumar has always loved life, and he relishes the life of a businessman. But he also wants to do other things. He's passionate about creating a better society and ensuring that everyone does as well as he's done. Resilient, patient and forward-looking. Let's hear from Sanjeev Kumar. He joins me this morning from central London. Good morning, Sanjeev Kumar.
Morning. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this interesting discussion.
Now, tell me something about your earliest memories. Born in Patna, you don't sound particularly Indian when I ask you some questions. How much of Patna is there still in Sanjeev Kumar?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I sound probably global, a cocktail of every accent that you could probably find on the planet. So I think it's a byproduct of my journey and the traveling. In terms of how much of Patna you can find, I think probably there are bits and pieces. I do care about the society there, and I do hope that one day I'll get a chance to do things that I want to do in that part of the world. So I would say that there are bits and pieces of Patna still, but I consider myself more of a global human being now because, when you travel, when you meet people, you kind of find a way to relate to them. And, then what happens is your perspective and your view of the world changes as you meet new people. And I think we all learn from people because at the end of it, they say social animal, isn't it?
So tell me about that life, the life of a young man whose parents are civil servants. You decided not to follow their route into the bureaucracy of India, but to do your own thing. Fond memories of that time?
So, I remember having conversation with my dad. You could probably relate to it. Probably people who know India could relate to it. So my dad used to tell me, look, if you are not a civil servant, you won't get a good wife from a good family. Nobody would want to marry you because a civil servant, a government job means, a permanent job security. So my dad was adamant that, no, I have to be a civil servant. And somehow I was, more mesmerized by stars and the cosmos and the other thing. And my dad kind of felt that this guy might not listen to us. And I realized if I have to do something, if I need to do something, I'll have to probably take the initiative myself. Because otherwise, if I would have to stay there, I'll probably be a civil servant myself.
Tell me about the breakthrough movements in your life, which made you realize you couldn't really stay in India. You had to go abroad because you left, didn't you, to study in the United States. How difficult a decision was that?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, because now I have a 14-year-old myself, and I can completely understand. It would have been very emotional decision for my parents as well, but I was very stubborn. I was very determined that I will leave the country because there was a lot of things going on in the country at the time in early 90s, and I was completely disillusioned. I was, you had no mentor and nothing to look forward to in a way. And I thought, no, I have dreams and I want to chase things. And, as a child, I was always more interested in what else is out there. What can I explore? So I was kind of very determined, and as my late mother would say, very stubborn. So I thought, I'm not going to get any support from my parents because they have a life kind of conceived for me, and I respected that. But I must give credit to my mother, and she said, look, as long as you can go and do what you want to do, I will be willing to support you. So that's why I started writing to international organizations, be it NASA, be it USAID, and I started to see if I could get sponsorship, etc. And finally, I did manage to get a sponsorship. So I sat down with my parents. I was pretty hard for my father to let me go, but there I did kind of rope in my eldest sister, who is late now. I lost her last year, but she did help put a nice presentation, if I could use that word, to my father, and my father decided, okay, if that's what you want to do, then we'll have to let you go. So it was a one-way ticket, obviously, and I thought, look, I had no other option. I have to just go and do whatever I can, and giving up was probably never an option.
This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm talking to the entrepreneur, Sanjeev Kumar. When we come back, we're going to talk about his life in America and his first steps into the global business that he now has. Join us after the break.
Keith Vaz on Talking Points, Leica.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I am talking to Sanjeev Kumar, the international entrepreneur, about his life, first in India, then in America, and then in the United Kingdom. Now, Sanjeev, you got to America, you went to Philadelphia. How long did you stay there, and what was academic life there for a 16-year-old?
And I'm just going deep diving into my memory to give you a good answer. So, initially it was very tough. It was very lonely. I mean, it'd be a huge struggle for me to even understand the accent and to understand what people are saying. So that was pretty tough. And then, you couldn't rely on any family network or connection for any help. So I had to quickly learn to adapt and then build your own network. I understood that you need friends, you need a network that you can rely on. If you fall sick, you need somebody to at least call you. So it was a lot of learning as a teenager. I think I probably won't be able to do that at the age of 45. I think it's trial and error is probably the right way to sum up the entire journey. I think, you learn, you adapt, and you find a way. I think that's probably the right way to describe it. You do find a way. As long as you keep trying, you continue to find a way. So I managed to go get my education. I managed to get my master's. I managed to get a couple of masters. I managed to get a master's in finance and then commerce, and then ended up doing an MBA. So all of my education was done in Philadelphia. And then obviously I started my career. I got a big break at a Wall Street firm. So then I moved from Philadelphia to New York. And that's also, again, was a bit of an emotional journey because, you again create a lot of friends and network, and they are the only family you know. And then from there to move to another big city like New York was, again, a kind of a break from the past. And you have to, again, do your network, again, build new relationship. And that's been the journey so far.
And then you decided to go into business. What made you make that leap into business, and which business did you choose to first get involved with?
So, Wall Street was very, very good to me. I mean, in terms of my career, in terms of my earnings, but also what we were doing is we were selling products, and we were doing things that I was not really comfortable, if I could use the word. And I remember I would buy my parents cars and things like that. And my mother would tell me, I hope you're doing the right thing. And I would say, well, I work for a very, very large investment bank, so I'm obviously doing the right thing. So I guess, there was an incident where I was asked to sell a specific product without getting into name to a family that I had a good liking towards, and they did treat me very well. And I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. And that was probably the turning point. I decided, no, money is fine, but there is a world beyond money. And that's when I got introduced by accident, really, to this company that was an asset management company at that point. And it was a struggling company because they caught the Argentinian crisis, then they caught the Russian crisis, so they were in a pretty bad shape. And I thought, I will take the risk. And I was mid-20s, I think, at the time. So I took the risk. If you ask me, I'll probably not take that risk today, but I decided to take that risk because when you're young and you kind of, the perspective and your assessment of risk is completely different, and that's the journey started. So I took that as a challenge. Initially, it was a lot of failures, a lot of mistakes. I mean, sometimes you just felt like you will give up. But then you get a message from somebody, and it's a positive message. You say, okay, another 3 months and I'll give up. And then nothing happens. So, you just thought, what, I think I'll only fail if I just give up. So you keep trying, and that's what I did. I just kept trying. And then finally things started to work. And then I realized that all these degrees and all of that is fantastic, and it gives you the right pedigree that you need to navigate the business world. But there is a grit that nobody can teach you, and there are known unknowns, and there are unknown variables that I will never be able to account for. And then I became a reluctant believer of a variable called luck, because I have now realized anybody who has managed to get anywhere, I think they should acknowledge that luck played a key role in wherever they managed to get to.
And one of the things that you can't buy, of course, is luck, can you? I mean, this is something that just happens. We'll explore some of this in a later segment of the program. But do you think that you practiced capitalism with a human face? Do you think that is a good way to sum up what you've done? Because you were clearly not a wolf on Wall Street, were you? It didn't turn you off making money because, as someone once said, money is the means by which you achieve those social ends. Do you have to be the Good Samaritan? Remember Margaret Thatcher's favourite phrase? The Good Samaritan was able to stop and help because the Good Samaritan had money. Do you need money in order to get things done?
So that's a very, very interesting question. I think personally, I think when we go to specific schools, etc., I realize that there are specific thought process. So if you go to a specific business school, there is a left-leaning thought process. If you go to a specific business school, there is a right-leaning thought process. And I think that's where we get it wrong. I do think that it is time for capitalism to be upgraded, because the fact of the matter is it is not working for 95+% of the global population. Now, does that make me socialist? I don't think so. It makes me pragmatic, because at the end of the day, what would be the value of an economy or anything for that matter if there were no people on the planet? It's the people who create value. And you have a society, you have a nation, then you have a central bank. That central bank prints that money on behalf of a society, mandated by the government. So if the capital market is not working for people, then that capital market needs to be revamped, redesigned, reimagined. So the way I am seeing it is we need to reconceive and reimagine the capital market. The way we have created our economy, we have created a dependency on money. And I always kind of give an example that, look, I have to spend millions to buy a property in central London, but a bird lives in Buckingham Palace for free. So is the bird smart, or am I a dumb person?
Obviously, you're not making a reference to the Queen there, are you, Sanjeev?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I don't want to go there.
We'll leave it there. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. Just to be clear, I'm sure Sanjeev was not referring to Her Majesty the Queen when he made that last reference. We will come back after the break.
The personalities that matter with Keith Vaz on Talking Points.
Leica Radio.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm talking to the social entrepreneur, Sanjeev Kumar, about his life and also about his plans for the future. Sanjeev, you've got a healthcare company which employs many hundreds of people. What was the purpose of you getting involved in the healthcare sector? Obviously, extremely important for our listeners.
There is an interesting story, so I'll try to sum it up in 2 seconds. So my dad was in the healthcare sector himself. So I used to hate healthcare sector. I said, I'm never going to get involved in healthcare. And he said to me, don't worry, son, genes will take over and you'll do what the genes ask you to do. So I ended up getting into healthcare by accident. It was not a purposely designed. And the reason I got into it because I saw that healthcare was fragmented. So we looked at healthcare from a point of view where we thought, let's just create a center of excellence for integrated healthcare. So we decided to marry the modern medicine with the ancient healing system, whether it's holistic, whether it's, Ayurvedic, whether it's Oriental. So we thought, let's give it a try, because in terms of the modern medicine is very useful when somebody is broken, meaning physically. But in terms of the quality of lifestyle that you need, the holistic side, the ancient medicines are very good and evidence-based. Keep your quality of life at a very higher level. So we thought we will integrate the two, and we'll call it the Center of Excellence for Integrated Healthcare. So we are focusing on longevity, we are focusing on wellness, we are focusing on continuity of care, and making sure we don't have a healthcare which is one size fit all. We have a more personalized, we have more curated, and we have a more evolving healthcare. So a hospital is not a place that should scare people, or a medical facility or a medical center should not be a place that should scare people. It should be a place where people will come to heal And that's what we are trying to put forward with the help of technology, with the help of the learning. And it's a nice marriage of technology, modern medicine, and ancient healing techniques and the ancient healing systems that we've all known for decades and years.
Well, you've got me started now. It's a Sunday morning, and what I would love is a bit of Ayurveda to get me through what is going to be a stressful week next week. I get particularly stressed when Leicester City play, making sure that we win, of course, at the end. But health, your body as a temple, something that should be respected. Do you think we respect our bodies enough as we go along our daily lives?
I think it's a great question. I personally, it's been my own self-realization that I realized that the biggest investment that I'll ever be making is an investment in myself. And that investment in myself has to start with my health. And that realization came to me after I found myself struggling health-wise, backache and this ache and that ache. I realized I am exploiting myself. And the modern medicine kind of popping pill, as you said, kind of gives us an excuse that don't worry, I have that pain, I'll just pop the pill and it'll make me better. But that doesn't help you in the long run. It kind of takes away the pain for a while, but your body is sending you a signal that no, you need to take care of me. I think that's how I've learned to see it.
Now, you're also heavily involved in education. Health, education, two of the most important ingredients of life. What's your passion and interest in education?
Because, I was fascinated initially by having to go to big Ivy League business schools, etc. And I did that. And I realized it didn't really prepare me for life. I mean, yes, I got a certification. I managed to get myself a good job and it paid me very well. But I didn't find that education really helped me. So that's why it's one of my passions to focus on education in terms of skilling, giving the younger generation the right type of skill they need. And what is happening now is because the economy is changing, because our society is changing, we will have to be learning continuously. So we have to do a lifelong learning and we have to do learning on the go. And that's what we are focusing on. We are focusing more on learning on the go, giving people the right skill set. We have also launched a program for young adults, teenage population called Wisdom Accelerator to make sure when they leave school, they're prepared for life because life is not going to be easy for them. No human will come to us and say that they had an easy ride. Nobody had that easy ride. And what we want to do is to make sure at least we have prepared the younger generation to understand what decisions that they can make and what is right and what is wrong. And I think we have too many educated people in our society, but our society is struggling. So I feel quite passionate about it. The only way we can make changes in the society is through education. And that's where I'm focusing on.
This is Keith Vaz on Like a Radio. We're on Talking Points and we're talking to Sanjeev Kumar, the international social entrepreneur. When we come back, we're going to take his take on the current issues facing the globe. Join us after the break.
Talking Points with Keith Vaz, celebrating diversity. Leica, London.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Talking Points on Leica Radio. I'm talking to Sanjeev Kumar, the international social entrepreneur. Sanjeev, COVID caught us all unawares. Do you think we've got over the crisis? I'm not asking you this as an expert, because of course there is no expert in COVID, but as someone who runs businesses, a fellow human being, do you feel we're over the worst, or do you think this is going to come back? Just your gut feeling.
So my gut feel is that we will have to learn to live with it. And I think there will be things like COVID coming and hitting us, and hopefully we are more prepared than we have been. But it also kind of paints a picture of where we are going as a society, and that kind of connects to the education segment that we were talking about. So I think we have a lot of work to do. Businesses were caught by surprise, and there was no instruction manual to go to. Governments were caught because they didn't have any preparation. So we saw globally government take a lot of missteps. So I think we'll have to learn to live with it as a society. I would think because of the vaccination and therapy coming through, I think the worst of this COVID at least is over. But are we preparing ourselves for the next one? That's my biggest question. As a business now, I am focused on preparing for the next crisis. So we'll have to wait and see. But, once a crisis hits you, especially like a COVID crisis, you have to learn and you have to adapt. And there has to be a lot of evolution in your business model. And I think maybe the government can learn also from how the business have reacted, because I see globally the governments have been quite slow and they've not been that effective in dealing with COVID. So in hindsight, I can always find faults in our steps that we took and what government did. But I think there is a lot of learning and will probably take us at least 2 good years to learn from it and then prepare for the next crisis.
Are you as worried as I am that here we have in our Western countries 3 jabs? I've just had my 3rd jab. But there are places on this earth, countries on the globe, that have not even had their first jabs. Does that worry you? Does it show nationalism at its worst?
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate reality, isn't it? I mean, the fact of the matter is we know, forget the nationalistic boundaries, etc. We know the only way to fix this COVID situation is to make sure everybody has been looked after, meaning everybody's vaccinated. So you give everybody a fighting chance, first line of defense. So I would think this is just a common sense for all of us. We are doing whatever we can to make sure people who are not vaccinated in emerging market and other places, we provide free vaccinations. We are doing that as a healthcare company. But I think the society also in the West, we need to acknowledge that this will come and hit us if not everybody is vaccinated. It's in our own interest to look after other people, I would say. It is in our own interest to make sure others are vaccinated and others are looked after. That's what I would say.
Now we're coming to the end of this fascinating interview. I want to ask you 2 final questions. The first is on leadership. You're clearly a leader. If you leave your own home country and go abroad at the age of 16, then you've experienced the world and you've come across lots of different leaders. How do you motivate people in your businesses? Do you model yourself on someone in particular, or how do you practice the art of leadership?
So I can share with you my own experience. I think there is no modeling of what a leadership is. The problem is, you're not born as a leader. Some people might say you were born as a leader, but I tend not to subscribe to that idea. I think through your own grit, through your own circumstances, you find yourself in a situation. And I think most good leaders are reluctant leaders, to be honest. That's my own feeling, assessment. I think leader is not a boss. I think leader is more of a mentor. Leader is more of a friend. Leader is more of a partner. Leader is more of an entity that encourages you. Leader is more of an entity that is listening to you, holding your hand. So you have to be somebody's parent also sometimes. I realize that within my own business. You have to be able to listen to people. And if you just kind of issue instructions, that never works. So leadership is, to me, is having a lot of empathy as well. If you're not investing your emotional capital in people, then eventually you and your business will struggle, because I feel, based on, again, on my own journey so far, a business is only good as people. So if you don't look after your people, your business may not be sustainable in the long run.
We always ask our special guests to choose a record, because after all, this is a music-based radio station. A record that means something to them, a piece of music that perhaps defines them, and to dedicate it to someone special. Which song would you like to choose, and who would you like to dedicate it to?
I think I will go with Jeena Yahan Marna Yahan Iske Siva Jana Kahan from Mera Naam Joker. I think now I understand this song better than I did when I was a 16-year-old. And I'll probably dedicate it to my late parents and anybody who kind of relates to this song.
Do you know, that's one of my favourite films as well, and I love the line we're asked, has anyone seen my heart? Which is beautiful. Beautiful song. Thank you so much. Sanjeev Kumar, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this Sunday morning, to hearing about your life and also about an insight to your plans for the future. Thank you so much for joining us, and the best of luck with all your very exciting adventures.
Thank you for having me, Keith, and all the best to the listeners of Laika Radio.
जीना यहाँ मरना यहाँ इसके सिवा जाना कहाँ जीना यहाँ मरना यहाँ इसके स्वर्ग